I grew up in Northeast Iowa, in Waterloo, and Cedar Falls.
I grew up in Fort Madison.
I grew up in Mount Pleasant.
I grew up in Marion.
Waukee.
Schleswig.
Iowa City.
I grew up in Lisbon, North Dakota, about an hour from Fargo.
I grew up in Evans, Utah.
I grew up in Cicero, Illinois.
I grew up mainly in California, but also Michigan and Louisiana.
I was born in Mexico and immigrated to this country when I was 6 years old. We lived in the suburbs of Chicago. I grew up in Wheeling. I grew up in Mount Prospect. I grew up in Prospect Heights. I grew up in Palatine. I grew up wherever my parents moved us to.
In a small town, there's a lot of time. So I read everything. And I was a cheerleader, and a future business leader of America, and a future homemaker of America, and a Girl Scout, and I ran cross country. In the summer, you could get a t-shirt if you ran 100 miles, or 200 miles, or 300 miles. I'd spend the summer running up and down and up and down and up and down this gravel road. I really loved to get those shirts.
I was in football, basketball, golf, band, and graduated in the class of 24.
I did swim club, I did volleyball, I did gymnastics. But I quit doing all that. I had to work. I was still valedictorian.
I loved music, had a Monkees 45. I played it over and over and over and over, and wrote Davy Jones a letter that I wanted to marry him.
We had a big family. 3 step-siblings, a half-brother, and a stepdad I called Dad because he took care of me.
I was very shy. Very shy. I didn't talk a lot. I thought a lot. I was angry at the world.
I played baseball. It was a very big source of joy for me. I was always the first one to show up, the last one to leave, did whatever needed to be done, helped whoever needed help. Other kids' parents told my mom, "Your son's a real leader." I thought it was just what you're supposed to do.
I was the 4th of 5 boys. I was captain of the baseball team. My favorite band was Led Zeppelin. My favorite book was Last of the Mohicans.
I was an only child. I was bookish. I read history, horror, Stephen King. Couldn't get enough of Stephen King. A little bit of sci-fi and fantasy, and classics. To Kill a Mockingbird, Lord of the Flies, The Great Gatsby. I just ate it up.
I look forward to being at school every day, being at high school and learning English and literature and psychology and science and Spanish. I learned a lot, and it didn't cost me anything.
I spent my first year living in a basement because right after World War II, all the GIs came back. There was a tremendous housing shortage, so my parents rented what they could find.
I wanted to be an athlete. When I figured out I wasn't going to be an athlete, I became more bookish and more driven. So by the time I was a sophomore in high school, I was pretty bookish and pretty driven. And my favorite book was Catch-22.
3rd grade, picture day. I wanted to wear a camouflage, but my mom said no. I wore a navy blue polo with camouflage pants because the pants wouldn't be seen in the photo.
Navy blue polo with camouflage pants.
But I knew they were there.
The military is definitely ingrained in me.
I'm a 4th generation veteran.
My grandfathers were in the Navy. My grandmother was a Marine.
My grandfather was drafted, but was never sent anywhere.
My dad went to Desert Storm.
My grandfather served in the Navy in World War II. My dad was in Vietnam.
No one ever talked to me about the military.
My dad was in the Marines, and my mom was in the Air Force.
My granddad was in the Air Force. My dad was in the reserves. My brothers are in the Army right now.
One grandfather was in World War II. My other grandfathers served in the Air Force in both World War II and the Korean War. My older brother deployed to Iraq with the Army Reserves.
All my uncles were in the Army. One grandfather, one of my aunts. My stepmom's sister-in-law was an officer in the Air Force, and her dad was in the Pacific in World War II.
My father served in the Navy in World War II, but it wasn't expected of me.
The military is ingrained in me.
I wanted to go into the military and I wanted to go to college. The Naval Academy is full.
I signed up between my junior and senior year. I turned 18, I graduated, and 3 days later I was shipped out.
I turned 18, graduated, and shipped out the next day.
We didn't have money for college, I told my mom. I wanted to join the Marines. She said, "You're not strong enough. You're never going to make it." I said, "Tell me more."
I wanted to be part of something bigger than myself.
I got bored at the end of high school and joined the National Guard. Then I was out of the Guard for 12 years. Then 9/11 happened.
Then 9/11 happened.
I was always interested in the military.
I was removed from my home. I dropped out of school. I got in my car one day and cried and drove and cried and drove. And ended up in front of a recruiting station. It was a godsend.
We have a lot of freedoms that other countries don't. I wanted to find my own way to give back.
I had to get out and make a change and find myself.
I was a store manager at Walgreens. Hated it, absolutely hated it. When September 11th happened, I'd already done 5 years in the reserves, but I just had to do something.
I was 17 and my mom went and signed the papers for me to join the Marines. I asked my dad and he said, "Yeah, sure."
It was August 1969. I could either enlist or be drafted.
I joined the Army. I joined the Navy. I joined the Air Force. I joined the Marines. I joined the National Guard. And I have stories.
I'm an Air Star Trooper.
I'm an Air Star Trooper.
Just a sliding down the road.
Just a sliding down the road.
I'm an Air Star Trooper.
I'm an Air Star Trooper.
Just a sliding down the road.
Just a sliding down the road.
Oh, you better get out of my way now.
Oh, you better get out of my way
Before
now.
I slide all over you.
Before I slide all over you.
It's just a little,
Whoa.
a little,
Hey.
a little rock and roll.
It's just a little,
Hey.
a little rock and roll.
It's the kind of,
Woo.
the kind of,
Hey.
the kind that soothes your soul.
It's the kind of suits your soul.
Oh, you better get out of my way now.
Oh, you better get out of my way
Before I
now.
slide all over you.
Before I slide all over you.
Before I fall all over you.
Before I fall all over you.
Before I roll all over you.
Before I roll all over you.
3 days after I joined the United States Air Force, I was at Lockland Air Force Base in San Antonio. I was 18. I was cocky. I didn't know what discipline meant. I didn't know what structure meant. I didn't know what it meant to have a drill sergeant standing in front of me, yelling at me, her spit coming at my face. So I laughed. Worst mistake ever. You think this is funny? Mm-hmm. Well, now you're going to be in charge of this whole flight. What? What does that even mean? It means that if anyone screws up, you're going to be the one to do the chores. So I learned quick how to be disciplined, how to be appropriate, how to be structured, and how to encourage others. That was my first experience with leadership. The military showed me that. They told me I was smart. They told me I was a leader, the first ones ever. And you know what? I started to believe them.
C-130 rolling down the strip.
C-130 rolling down the strip.
361 gonna take a trip.
Blue platoon gonna take a trip.
C-130 rolling down the strip.
C-130 rolling down the strip.
361 gonna take a trip.
Blue platoon gonna take a trip.
Fly on, airmen.
Fly on, airmen.
Fly on, airmen.
Fly on, airmen.
Airmen flying on, fly on, airmen.
Airmen flying on, fly on, airmen. I was 6.5 years active Army. I'm currently in the National Guard. I'm a 19 Delta Cavalry Scout, a reconnaissance specialist. We go out and observe an area for follow-on forces or future operations. I met my best friend in the service. He was in my unit. We were deployed to Kosovo in 2018. We were sitting on this range. It was late at night, so dark, so quiet. I was just sitting outside the truck, and I looked up to him and said, "Man, this sucks ass." He looked down and said, "Yep." We forged a friendship through the suck. Just outside Fallujah, just outside Fallujah.
I started deployment just outside Fallujah. It seemed like all the forces were there in Fallujah. Special forces, infantry battalions, Marine Corps, Army units, air support, fighter jets, Spectre gunships, artillery and mortars, and there were missiles being launched from naval ships. It seemed like the whole weight of the US military was pouring down on Fallujah. I was working at the detainees facility, which was right next to Bravo Surgical, which was where the most severely living injured were brought. Flying in on the back of Humvees, torn up and medevaced in a helicopter or operated on right there. Right there.
Right there.
Right there. How many lived?
How many live?
How many died?
How many died?
I don't know. But I was there for 7 months.
7 months.
Just outside Fallujah.
Just outside Fallujah.
Just outside
Just outside.
Just outside Fallujah. Just outside Fallujah.
أشهد
Ever since I was 18, I knew the draft was going to be there. My strategy was not thinking about it and thinking that they would forget about me. They didn't. I graduated from college in the spring of '68 and got called for a physical in the summer of '69. Ah, shit. And so, in August 1969, I enlisted in the Air Force, so I at least had some control of where I ended up. I was a personnel specialist, a Remington Rand Raider. I did a lot of typing. But I was actually deployed at one point, 6 weeks in Thailand. We landed at Thompson Air Force Base just outside Saigon. I watched people get off. They had tours of Vietnam. But I stayed on a plane and went to Bangkok and lived in a hotel. That was my experience in a war zone. It's not a great story, but it is the story. I don't remember ever being in favor of the Vietnam War. I applied to be a conscientious objector discharge. They wanted to know, was I opposed to my participation in all wars? I used to call it the existential cop-out because the question they would always throw at you was, what about Hitler? Would you have fought against Hitler? And if you say yes, I would have fought against Hitler, then you're not a conscientious objector. All I know is that all the wars that I've seen are all abhorrent. All of them abhorrent.
Mother, 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 there's too many of us dying.
Brother, 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 can't you hear the people crying?
You can blame the generals, you can blame the politicians, but if individuals wouldn't serve, there would be no war. Obviously, I was not going to end the Vietnam War, but war most certainly would not end if people continue to participate. You can't put an end to war if you participate in war.
You can blame the generals, blame the politicians, you can blame the system, uncontrollable conditions for what's going wrong. You can blame your neighbors, blame superstitions, blame everybody for all the divisions and what's going on.
What's going on?
Now it's time to cross a picket line, raise a picket sign, wrap your mind around this truth.
This truth, yeah.
Hey, it's time to cross a picket line, raise a picket sign, wrap your mind around this truth.
This truth, yeah.
If individuals won't serve, there might be
No war.
You have to demonstrate either a religious belief or a sincerity of belief. I wrote essays on the basis of my belief and sent them in. Then you have to be interviewed by an officer with the rank of major or higher, and then a psychiatrist, and then a minister, and then you wait. On August 9th, 1971, I was back in the States, and I knew something was up. There was this one tech sergeant, a career sergeant, a lifer, a jerk. He had just gotten a cable back from Houston, and he was giving me a dirty look. I was being discharged as a conscientious objector, and within 9 days, I was out.
demonstrate a belief.
On the streets now.
Demonstrate sincerity.
Now is the time.
Demonstrate a belief.
Show humanity. Get up, stand up, stand up.
You can name the armaments, name the munitions. You can name the monuments, name the traditions.
Conflicts lost and won.
You can name the headstones from the battle
I went off to basic training before I graduated high school. The Utah Army National Guard, on the enlisted side. Field artillery. It was great. For 7 years, I was all guard all the time. Then, I was out, and I got into dirt work, hauling mud, concrete, and sometimes on the ground, cable, sewer, power, water, sometimes in a truck, running mud up and down Interstate 15. I bounced around and followed the money as best as I could. I was out for 12 years when 9/11 happened, and I started to get like, man, I want to go back. I ended up in Afghanistan on a gun truck, highly armored and bigger than a Humvee, with shooting from IEDs and netting for incoming rockets so they'll explode before they hit the truck, and a gun on top, and a gun guy. There's normally 4 or 5 guys, but we were a team of 3. We were security for the convoys. We were the bounding trucks, positioned in the middle or on the end. Then we would bound up and pass the convoy and stop traffic or whatnot to let the convoy pass to the intersections or whatever. There was a moment going through Kandahar when one of the locals wanted us to divert our convoy. He wanted us to go down another road. Yeah, that doesn't happen. Not to be mean, but we make the rules. We go through where we go through. You don't send us. We don't know what's down that road, so you're not sending us there. And he kept almost raising his gun, almost raising his rifle up, trying to. But we're the bounding trucks.
Free inside, holding security, and the sun and the sand in their eyes can't see the horizon.
And the smell of the sweat,
And the smell of the smoke.
And the smell of the fear rising up from the crossroads in Kandahar.
we're holding security, and this poor guy, it just got super bad. He should not have been doing that.
Not have been doing that.
He should not have been doing that. At last, he gave up, but it was so close. If he would have put the muzzle towards us, our gunner would have taken him down, because that's aggressive. You can't.
You have to.
You can,
You have to.
you can,
You have to. And the squeal of the tires
and the grind of the gun, and the sound of the cries rising up from the sun at the crossroads. In a bounding truck,
ain't no mud truck.
in a bounding truck,
Ain't no mud truck
in a bounding truck,
at the
in a
crossroads.
bounding truck.
Ain't no mud truck. You have to.
I've been in the Army National Guard for 23 years. My husband is also in the Guard, full-time. We met in the same unit in Iowa City. One time, he was coming home from annual training, and I was on my way to annual training. We passed each other on I-80 right before the airport exit. In our convoys, we waved to each other. The first time he deployed, his unit was notified that they were leaving, and a week later, they had to report. We had 2 little kids at the time. I would drive them from Mount Pleasant to Davenport so my sister-in-law could take them for the weekend. Then I would drive to Iowa City, I'd do my drill, I'd drive to Davenport to get them, and then back home to Mount Pleasant. I did that for a full year. They say some people peak in high school. I am not that person. I'm still on an upward trajectory. Admin specialist is what I did when I first joined, but I didn't always like the way I saw some things going. I wanted to be one of the people in charge. I wanted to be in the room making decisions. So I went to officer school. Some of the best stuff I did was on flood duty. I've been to other states purifying water. I've slept in the basement of Mercy Hospital in Iowa City on flood duty. I've helped evacuate residents from a long-term facility in Riverside. In 2019, I was asked if I would deploy to Kosovo to be the SARC, the Sexual Assault Response Coordinator for a region there. Now, I was going to retire, but I'm a therapist. Been a victim advocate for many years for sexual assault and harassment, so I went. I was at the headquarters of KFOR. That stands for K-Force. It's a multinational organization, and I was responsible for leading training related to sexual assault and harassment prevention. I was given full reign to cut through the jargon, to get to the basics, to lead workshops, to have real discussions about consent and what's expected when we work together. So that's what I did. Because I've always been solution-based, I was raised to work hard, and I want to be part of the solution.
I was an aircraft mechanic. They say it takes a guy with a high school degree to fix what a guy with a college degree breaks. Yep. I was in Iraq, in Baghdad in 04 when we were about to hand over power. Saddam's trial was going on. They would drive him in before the sun came up. He had a black hood on his head and zip ties on his hands. They would lead him into a helicopter and then fly him into the city. We were in the green zone, but we got shelled constantly. One day, my command post calls in. We need to put an aircraft on the med spot. That's right off the runway. It's a British C-130. Ambulance is already there. I see a nurse. She's got a big, clear bag filled with clean, white bandages. She goes up on the plane. In about 10 minutes, I see mortuary affairs roll up. The nurse comes back off. That bag she had, you couldn't see the bandages anymore. There was no white anymore. It was covered in blood. They told me to go look for bullet holes in the plane, so I had to go inside. I see mortuary affairs pushing, pulling, inserting this man into a bag, and there's stuff everywhere, blood and brain matter and everything. We found one bullet hole on that entire aircraft. Just one. It was right where that guy was sitting. He was just a civilian contractor, just sitting, just sitting in a jump seat wearing a flak vest and a skull catcher. That bullet missed his flak vest, went up his neck and out through his forehead. Just one bullet from small arms fire because they flew so low. See, American planes fly over the airfield. We spin up because the airfield is secure, but the Aussies and the Brits come in low and fast. That bullet was a 1 in a million shot, just one.
Just one. Just one. Just
But it got him.
I deployed 4 times. We were supposed to leave Iraq in April 2007. Then President Bush sent another 60,000 troops, and we were told we were staying another 6 months. So I spent a total of 18 months in Iraq. Our original mission was to be an infantry unit. But we got changed at the last minute, convoy security, escorting over 100 vehicles from the Jordanian border to the middle of western Iraq. Doing convoy security, you're kind of a sitting duck. You're waiting for something to happen. You don't have any control, you're just out there. You kind of feel like you're the prey and you're being hunted all the time. And you're always on the edge. In a year and a half, I had 1 day off. It was the afternoon of Christmas Day. If you weren't out on a mission, you were getting ready to go. It doesn't really leave you with a whole lot of time to process anything. You're just reacting. I don't want to say there weren't any good things that happened. I remember it was my birthday. And for the first time in almost 40 years, it snowed in Iraq. The guys are making snowmen on their vehicles and giving me a hard time, telling me I was old. Most of them were in their 20s, and I was 32, so yeah, I was the old man. The platoon sergeant with 40 soldiers underneath me, who was responsible for all of them, for making sure they were getting what they needed, for trying to keep them safe. Western Iraq is not a very nice place to be, but I made a promise to them, and indirectly to their families, that I would get them home. And I did. I got them all home. Maybe not in the condition they left in, but they did all get home.
When you graduate from the Naval Academy, you have to choose the Marine Corps or the Navy. I never really seriously considered the Marine Corps. I do not like the mud. The thing about the Navy is that you deploy. Regardless, you're going to deploy. I was on a destroyer first for almost 3 years, first lieutenant, in charge of the boatswain mates and the undesignated seamen. They do the classic sailor jobs, putting the anchor in the water, pulling the anchor up, putting the small boats in the water, driving them, bringing them up, tending to the lines mooring, getting underway, painting and exterior maintenance of the ship, standing watch on the bridge. They still use a bosun's pipe for all hands and mess call and things like that. After that, I was the assistant chief engineer and the ship's legal officer, because there aren't enough JAGs, judge advocate generals, to put on every ship. So they trained a bunch of junior officers in some basic law. You learn how to not do an illegal search and seizure. You get notary powers. I was the ship's lawyer, even though I wasn't a lawyer. The second ship I was on was an LHD, a landing helicopter dock, a multi-purpose amphibious assault ship. It looks like a small aircraft carrier. You can't land Navy jets on them, but you can land Harriers and helicopters because they can land vertically. They don't bounce around the way a smaller ship does, which is good for somebody like me who gets seasick. I was also the Combat Information Center officer and, for a couple months, acting navigator. I never experienced combat. It's very unusual for ships to be engaged in combat. But once, I was in charge of navigating through the Strait of Malacca, which was probably the most harrowing thing for me. The Strait of Malacca is only 2 or 3 miles wide, but it is one of the busiest waterways in the world, maybe the busiest. We were going through at night, ships everywhere, smaller fishing boats darting in between the bigger ships. It's really, really tight. Some ships, trying to avoid somebody, keep turning, and end up sideways in the strait, then run aground. The thing about ships is that once you've made a decision, a certain amount of the future is baked in. Like the Titanic, reversing is really hard to do. At some point, you can only watch the outcome of the decision that you've made, and if it was the wrong one, well, you just have to watch your mistake play out. When I finally got relieved off of that watch, I tried to go to sleep, but I was too keyed up. I ended up in medical the next day having an EKG because my heart was still racing. I was maybe 25 years old. But it wasn't all stressful. Magical things happen sometimes. Like once, when I was on one of my ships, we were in the Middle East on the ocean. I was on the bridge with the big windows so that we could see all around us. And suddenly, there was this flight of dragonflies. Dragonflies everywhere. Every single thing sticking out of the ship covered in dragonflies. And we're zooming along 15 or 20 knots, and I could just see their little faces. And they were just hanging on for dear life.
The anchor.
And then
The second.
it started
Third
raining.
deck. The first platform.
Just out of the blue. Coming up in the desert, we get this heavy rain and the dragonflies
Hatch covers.
disappeared.
Nest.
Just out of the just out of
They just disappeared.
I shipped off to Marine Corps boot camp August 16th, 2004. I served 5 years active duty with probably the greatest job in all of the military. AC-130 crew chief. The pilots fly the plane, but I operate it. I had to know all the aircraft systems. I had to know engines. I had to know hydraulics. I had to know oxygen systems. I had to know electronic countermeasures, airframes, pneumatics, everything. I had to live and breathe how this plane worked. Because if anything happened in flight, well, I'd have to fix it. My first deployment was to Iraq. We did a lot of aerial refueling in support of ISR, intelligence, surveillance, reconnaissance. F-18s or A-V Harriers would plug into us, drop down to altitude, and just take care of whatever they needed. We also had the responsibility of angel flights. Any service member who passed in combat or whatever, we would shuttle the deceased off for processing. It was terrible, but it was also a tremendous honor to carry somebody who had given their life to get them on their journey home. Sometimes you can listen to what was happening on the ground and you just knew that one or two had passed and you were going to have to go pick them up. That's what weighs on you the most. One day, I was woken up early by one of my co-pilots. We had to go to this little town on the edge of the Iranian border. It's basically just a dirt strip on the side of a mountain. To medevac 4 guys who had been hit by an IED in the middle of the night. 1 with shattered ankles and broken legs, 2 on ventilators, 3 in a coma, all 4 badly burned. One guy had previously had a beard, but it was mostly burned off along with the rest of his face. Same with another. One, he had started to scab over his oxygen nose line. Another, his face and head were, well, but at least he was able to breathe on his own. They told us that we were taking them to Kandahar. What the hell? I've been to Kandahar Medical Center. It's primitive. Doctors don't want to go there. So much of the equipment they have is broken. We wanted to take them to Bagram, but somebody higher up said no. So, okay, we take them where you tell us to. On the way, a weather front rolls in. It was gusty, windy, cold, and rainy. The sky was blacker than all hell. I'm a seasoned aviator, but this is the scariest weather I have ever seen. We approached Kandahar Airport. They were trying to close the airfield because of the storm. Told us we could make 1 pass at landing. After that, we would be waved away. Just after our initial fix, boom, we hit the weather. We dropped, I don't know, about 1,000 feet in 3 seconds. We basically just fell out of the sky. Kandahar wouldn't let us try to land, so on to Bagram. We finally make it, and we unload our guys. I can't put a name to what it is that we felt. Fear, stress, relief, anger. We were never told how it turned out for those guys.
Fly on, airmen.
Fly on, airmen.
Fly on, airmen.
Fly on, airmen.
I served my country for 5 years.
I served for 7.
Enlisted in 1994, discharged in 2001.
5 years active duty, discharged in 2009.
Retired with 22 years active duty. 27 total.
I served 2 years, got my discharge August 9th, 1971.
Retired with 23 in 23.
Discharged in 1998 after 7.
4 years at the Naval Academy, 3 years on my first ship, 1.5 on my second.
6.5 active duty. Now I'm in the Guard.
Retired in 2011 with 21 and a half years of service.
I think my service was the best, worst time of my life. I think the military amplifies either the good side of you or the bad side of you. I think it brought out the best in me.
It was definitely one of the best times of my life. It was like I was in this incubator, and when I came out, I was able to be this beautiful and strong being. My family always said to me, pretty girls just don't talk. Just stay there. Just be quiet. The military did the opposite. They said, we want to hear you.
I got to do a lot of things because of the Navy. I got to do a master's of philosophy and social anthropology at Oxford. I got to go to sea. I got to go from Lisbon, North Dakota to Lisbon, Portugal. When I got out, I was really lost. I'd been in uniform for so long, I didn't know how to dress. And I was used to someone else doing my laundry and cooking my meals and taking out the trash. And I didn't know how to make friends in a city. When I try to tell my stories to people that haven't been in the military, I'd have to explain this thing and this other thing and then another thing, and so on, like a nesting doll of stories.
I hated being in Afghanistan, but when we pulled out of there, it ripped my heart out. It really got to me. Why did I even go then?
I don't go many nights without having a dream about being in the Army. When I came back from Iraq, I noticed something was different. It just smoldered for a while, couldn't put my finger on it. Then I went to my general practitioner and he was like, well, it sounds like you have PTSD. Everyone's experience in the military is different. Some good, some bad. But for me, serving my country and being with those that I served with has been the most rewarding thing in my life.
For 5 months, I slept until noon and drank every night at a bar. I can't even go into a restaurant, sit down with my back against a door. I have to be able to see an exit all the time.
When I got out, I was kind of disgusted with people's ignorance of the situation that I had just gone through. My biggest treasure from that time is the brotherhood. 13 years and we still stay in contact.
I've had a lot of buddies that have committed suicide. I had a staff sergeant. He came to me and he gave me his rifle, his personal weapon that he had in his house. He was like, I want you to hold on to this.
My path has not been linear. I've been a paramedic. I've done marketing. I've done communications. But it all goes back to my time in the Army. The Army taught me my work ethic, taught me critical thinking, taught me how to approach complex problems, taught me how to adapt. The Army did that.
The military is authoritarian. It has to be. That's never been my cup of tea. But the military does give you opportunities to talk to people who don't share your background or view of the world, to get to know them and find out who they really are.
My service made me realize how much where you're born affects your whole entire life. Talking to those girls, 10 to 13 years old, how the rules were different for them than their brothers. But the privilege that comes from being born into a free society, especially as a girl, it's sure not a privilege that everyone has.
I think a lot of service members spend the rest of their lives processing their deployment. It's part of them, part of the film in their mind. I think it makes a person feel responsible for things they can't possibly be responsible for. There are a lot of things I'm not sure about, but I am sure of this. I'm grateful to be alive.
What I would like non-vets to understand, that our service doesn't define who we are. It's a part of us, right? Just one part.
People see us in uniform. They might come up and shake our hands and thank us for our service. That's fine. But we don't need, oh, you're a veteran. Let me coddle you.
Female veterans often don't get identified as veterans. Sometimes, if there's veteran parking at a hardware store or something, I won't park there. I don't want somebody to yell at me, "You're not a veteran. You don't have any stickers on your car. You don't have the license plates." We don't all advertise. But I do have it on my driver's license because it's nice to get 15% off pancakes on Veterans Day.
I was in one of my classes, and part of the curriculum said, point blank said, that all vets have PTSD, and they're crazy. And I said, I'm a vet. And everyone looked at me funny, and I'm like, we all have our own battles. How many of you have mental illnesses that you deal with? And nearly everyone in that class raised their hand.
I was at Mount Rushmore in 2014, I think. There was an event. They asked all the veterans to go down to the front to be recognized, and I just said no. I'm not trying to deny I'm a veteran. It's just a feeling that when they're talking about veterans, they're not talking about the guy who only did 2 years.
Several years after getting out, I found one of the guys we transported through that storm. I phoned every member of my crew from that day to tell them what he told me. They all made it. I don't go many nights. I don't go many nights without having a dream of being in the army. In the army.
My experience in the Army was kind of like a 9-to-5 job. We don't all get deployed overseas. We haven't all been in battle. We don't all see the same things. But we all stepped up. We all served our country. We all served our... We all served. We all served.